At 68, I'm hauling heavy silver platters in my own home while a Montana blizzard screams outside. My daughter-in-law, Claire, just threw a vulgar maid's costume at my feet. My brothers want a show, Ernesta. Put it on and serve us, she sneered. I looked at my son, Mark, for help, but he just laughed and looked away. They plan to evict me to the freezing basement tomorrow. What Claire doesn't know is that I've seen that lace outfit before, on her, in a video she hid. They want a show. They have no idea what's coming. Listen to the end to hear how I handled it, and subscribe for more. The platter tips. It's not my hands that betray me, they've carried heavier loads than this, steel I-beams and soaking wet blueprints in February wind. It's Randy's fingers that do it, reaching out with the casual entitlement of a man who has never once considered the weight of anything he touches. He wipes them across my chest, 5 slow, deliberate strokes, and the rib sauce blooms across my cream silk blouse like a bruise flowering in real time. The grease is warm. His grin is warmer. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. The whole move is a statement, clean and declarative as a load-bearing column. You are not a person in this room. I don't flinch. I've stood on open scaffolding in 40-mile-an-hour Helena winds. I know how to hold a line. My fingers tighten around the platter's rim, the silver edge bites into my palm and I feel the exact pressure point, a white line of pain, and I right the thing before a single bone china plate can slide. The dining room, my dining room, absorbs the moment the way it absorbs every ugly thing these people bring into it, silently, with the stoic patience of poured concrete. But the smell. God, the smell. Cheap domestic beer and the close, sour sweat of 8 people who flew in from Phoenix and Billings to occupy my furniture. My HVAC system filters down to 0.3 microns. It cannot filter for entitlement. The Montana modernism I spent 2 years designing, the cathedral ceilings with their Douglas fir ribs, the west wall of triple-paned glass that turns the wilderness into a living mural, all of it is currently serving as backdrop for Randy's people to drop chicken bones on the Riedel stemware and prop their boots on a custom walnut sideboard that cost more than most people's cars. My heart thuds once. Hard. Like a structural test. The disrespect isn't an accident. It's an opening volley. I look toward the head of the table. Mark is there, in his father's chair. He's wearing the wool sweater I bought him for Christmas, cashmere, charcoal gray, the kind of thing his father would have worn for a quiet dinner, not a beer and ribs demolition derby. He has his father's hands, square-palmed and capable. He has wasted them entirely. Our eyes meet. His hold for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to see the choice he makes, and then they slide away, tracking the legs of a wine glass with the studied disinterest of a man who has decided not to know something. He takes a long, slow pull from the bottle he's been nursing all evening. A 2009 Silver Oak Cabernet I had been saving since his father's 60th birthday, 14 months before the diagnosis, 7 months before the funeral. Mom's getting clumsy, he mutters to the woman beside him. The soft, wet chuckle that follows is the sound of a door closing. The betrayal is a cold needle slid under my fingernail. Slow. Deliberate. I process it the way I process structural failures, with clinical attention to where the load finally exceeded the tolerance. He isn't horrified. He isn't embarrassed. He is entertained. He is not a witness to my erasure, he is a participant. He handed them the eraser. I file this information away behind my sternum, where I keep everything I cannot afford to feel right now. I stabilize the platter and continue the circuit. This is what I have become in the house I designed and built with my own hands, the house that sits on a foundation I poured with a crew of 12 and my husband holding a flashlight at 2 in the morning because we couldn't afford overtime. I am the help. I am the furniture. I move through the Clare clan, that's what I call them, because they are not family. They are a taxonomy, weaving between bodies that do not shift to make way for me, collecting the debris of their gluttony with the mechanical precision of the programmable vacuum they'd prefer I were. I stop to pick up a napkin that Randy has deliberately kicked under the sideboard. I stoop. My knees pop, one sharp report and then the sustained ache, two old soldiers registering their complaint, and I retrieve the linen and fold it without looking at him. I am 68 years old. I have a bachelor's in architecture and a minor in electrical engineering. I spent 31 years on active job sites from Helena to Bozeman, managing crews and reading soil reports and calculating wind loads while men twice my size told me I didn't belong there. I wore out 3 pairs of steel-toed boots before I wore out my patience. I fold the napkin into thirds. I am a ghost in a silk shroud. I clear their plates. I smooth the surfaces. I disappear. The blizzard hits the west wall like a fist. Not the gradual pressure of a building storm, a single, percussive slam that travels through the triple-paned glass, through the steel frame, through the engineered hardwood beneath my feet and up through the soles of my shoes into my ankles, my shins, the marrow of my tibias. The whole room shudders. Someone's beer bottle walks an inch across the sideboard. A woman from the clan gasps. I don't move. The sound is a low, guttural scream that oscillates at the frequency of the ridge we're sitting on, 5,200 feet, exposed on 3 sides, the fourth backed against a granite escarpment that deflects the wind into a compression zone I calculated in a November 30 years ago, sitting at a drafting table with a pot of Earl Grey going cold at my elbow. I remember the exact number I wrote in the margin of that worksheet, 127 miles per hour design load. I designed this house to survive a 100-year storm. I designed the anchor bolts to hold in saturated soil. I designed the glazing to flex and recover. I know how the lungs of this building breathe. Outside, the world is disappearing. The security feed on my smartwatch shows the driveway markers buried to their shoulders in white. The county road down to the valley floor closed at 4 o'clock. I noted this. I noted the time. We are sealed. Nobody else in this room has thought about that yet. I carry the empty platter back through the dining room archway and into the foyer, and my fingers find the wall. It's automatic, the way your tongue finds a loose tooth. My right hand trails along the seamless oak paneling, a full-height installation I specified and supervised myself, book-matched panels of quarter-sawn white oak, grain running perfectly vertical, each panel seated in a routed channel with a tolerance of 1/32 of an inch. Contractors complained about the spec. I made them do it twice. My thumb drifts to the floor molding. To the place, 3 inches from the corner seam, where the molding presents a microscopic indentation, a slight recess, 1/8 of an inch deep, invisible to every eye that hasn't been told to look for it. A haptic trigger. The shape of a thumbprint. The memory comes the way it always comes when I touch this spot, complete, and with the particular ache of something precious and irreversible. 30 years ago. December. The contractors had gone home at 4 and the house was a skeleton of framing and rough electrical. My husband stood here with a flashlight and the modified set of schematics I'd spent 3 evenings redrawing by hand, the originals filed, the copies altered, the county submission scrubbed of one specific detail. He asked me if I was sure. I told him I had calculated every contingency. He said, "Ernie, you calculated contingencies before you learned to ride a bike." Then he held the flashlight steady for 4 hours while I did the framing. The pilot light flickers in the dark room of my chest. The spine is still there. Behind this panel, behind 24 inches of private space, running the full vertical length of the house from foundation to attic, a service corridor no inspector has ever walked, no contractor has ever billed for, no county record has ever acknowledged. It carries the primary fiber optic trunk. It accesses the manual HVAC overrides. It connects, at its terminus on the 2nd floor, to the room I built for contingencies. My thumb rests in the indentation. Not yet. The clink 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 cuts through the storm's roar like a scalpel. I know that sound. I have heard it at enough dinner parties to understand what it means. Look at me, I am making an announcement. But the register is wrong. It's too precise, too rhythmic, the tapping of a talon on crystal rather than a finger on glass. It has the quality of something rehearsed. Claire is standing at the far end of the table, where I used to sit with my husband on Sunday evenings, where the view of the West Range through the glazed wall turned the mountains into a painting. She is using one of my Waterford crystal glasses, a wedding gift, 39 years old, irreplaceable, as a percussion instrument. The recessed LED lighting I chose for its color temperature falls across her bleached blonde waves like a spotlight she has engineered into existence through sheer will. Her smile is the smile of a predator that has finally cornered its prey after a long, patient circuit of the enclosure. The clan swings their grease-shined faces toward her like sunflowers. I go still. My platter is in my hands. I am standing in the archway between the foyer and the dining room, partially in shadow. I watch her the way I watch a structural system under unexpected load, with total attention, reading for the first signs of where the failure will propagate. Her eyes find mine across the length of the room. Her smile doesn't change. It has been waiting for this exact moment. Family, Claire says, and the word lands in the room like a counterfeit bill. It looks right until you hold it to the light. She turns, glass extended, performing for the clan with the reflexive ease of someone who has spent a decade trying to build an audience. We've decided it's time to modernize. She gestures at the room with a loose, dismissive sweep of her wrist, the gesture encompassing the Douglas fir ceiling, the Montana quartzite fireplace around, the custom cabinetry my husband and I chose together from a millwork shop in Missoula that has since closed. This house has too much old clutter. The pause before old clutter is a knife, inserted and rotated. A ripple of excitement moves through the clan. This is what they came for, I understand now. This is the entertainment portion of the evening. Starting tomorrow, Claire continues, her tone acquiring the warm, decisive register of a woman reading a verdict she has already written. We're converting the upper suites into a content studio and a media lounge for the kids. She looks at a nephew, barely 20, who pumps his fist. The master suite goes to us, of course. Full renovation. The gallery will be perfect for product shoots. The gallery. She means the East Corridor, which houses 4 original oil paintings I bought from a Missoula artist who died in 2019. She means the built-in display cases my husband designed for his grandfather's woodworking collection. Mark is nodding along. He is staring at his plate. She is not just taking my rooms. She is stripping the skin off my legacy to upholster a content studio. She is converting 30 years of considered, deliberate beauty into a backdrop for sponsored posts. The smile drops. It happens between one breath and the next, like a mask hitting a counter, sudden, flat, and final. What replaces it is something I have seen before only in technical documents, the expression of a system operating at full design capacity with no remaining safety margin. Pure, clinical function. Her predatory blue eyes find mine with the precision of a surveyor's laser. Ernesta, she says, and the way she says my name, full name, the Ernesta her voice has always found a way to load with contempt, is the sound of a property line being redrawn. You've always said you love the foundations of this place. She pauses, the beat perfectly timed. Well, we've cleared a spot for you in the basement. It's private, quiet, and out of the way. Someone at the table laughs. A small, vicious sound, quickly muffled. The movers will be here at dawn to shift your things. Her tone is pleasant now, helpful, the tone of a woman doing someone a favor. Don't worry about the heat. The insulation down there is top-notch. The basement. I designed that room, too. Poured concrete walls, 12 inches thick, no fenestration, no HVAC supply duct of its own. The thermal mass alone keeps it at 52 degrees in summer. In a Montana blizzard, with the county road closed and no active heat source, it will approach 40 within 48 hours. Less, if the wind finds the foundation vents. She is not reassigning me to a room. She is describing a method of removal. I stand perfectly still. My posture is what it has always been, military straight, constructed from 30 years of job sites where the moment you let your spine curve, the crew reads it as permission. The platter is in my hands. My face is what it always is, a mask of calibrated attention that gives nothing back. I process the logistics the way I process every structural problem, by reducing it to its load paths. The basement is a tomb. It is windowless, unheated, acoustically isolated by 8 inches of rebar and stone above. I would hear their laughter the way you hear a radio through a hotel wall, present, muffled, and designed to remind you where you are not. She wants me below their feet, in the dark, aging toward disappearance on a cot between my own water heaters. The grief I felt for Mark, the specific, private grief of a mother who has watched her child make a choice she cannot reverse, begins to shift. I feel it going through a phase transition. Liquid to solid. Warm to cold. It cools and contracts and densifies until it is no longer grief at all. It is something harder and more useful. I am an architect. I understand loads, and I understand where things move when you push them. They think they are pushing me down. They are, in fact, moving me closer to the mechanical heart of the machine. They are solving a problem they don't know they're creating. The spine runs through the basement wall. I breathe once, deliberately, filling my lungs to the bottom. I walk to the head of the table. I do not hurry. My footsteps are silent on the oak. I know every floorboard in this house, know which ones speak and which ones hold their tongue, and I navigate them with the muscle memory of 28 years of living here. I set the platter down on the sideboard as I pass, freeing my hands. I stop behind Mark's chair. I place my hand on his shoulder. I feel the cashmere under my palm, $1,200 sweater, I remember the tag, and beneath it the familiar architecture of his shoulder, the bone I know from 38 years of holding it. The boy who fell off his first bicycle into this shoulder. The boy I sat beside in the emergency room at 2 in the morning with this shoulder under my arm. The boy who stood in a cemetery with this shoulder pressed against mine while we lowered his father into frozen ground. I apply pressure. I give him one last opportunity to be who I raised him to be. Not a word, I have run out of words that he is willing to hear. Just the pressure. Stop this. Come back. Be my son. My breath hitches. I hear it, a small, pathetic sound swallowed instantly by the howl of the storm against the west wall, and I am appalled at myself for making it, and I do not stop waiting. His weight will shift. His spine will straighten. He will say, "Claire, that's enough." The moment stretches. He hunches. A slow, deliberate contraction of his shoulders, like a turtle retreating into a shell it has borrowed from someone more cowardly than himself. My hand slides off the cashmere as if the fabric itself has rejected it. Don't make a scene, Mom. His voice is thick. Shame, I tell myself, and then I correct myself. No, not shame. Shame would require him to know what he's done. This is cowardice, which is different. Cowardice is operational. It is a decision made and remade, a muscle exercised until it no longer requires thought. The last cord snaps. It is not loud. I have attended building demolitions, have watched charges detonate in careful sequence to bring a 12-story structure down into its own footprint. They are always louder than you expect. This is the opposite, almost nothing, a small internal event, the sound of a very thin line going slack. The son I raised is a fiction I authored myself, and I have finally stopped writing him. I am no longer a mother. I am no longer a hostess, a widow, or the invisible help moving through this room in a stained silk blouse. I am what I was before any of those things, an architect. A woman who understands systems. A person who has spent 3 decades building, into the bones of this house, exactly the tools she would need for a moment she hoped would never arrive. I turn away from the table. My footsteps are silent on the oak. The blizzard screams against the glass, 5,000 feet of wild Montana winter pressing against the walls I designed to contain it, and I am already fading, already disappearing, not into helplessness, but into the house itself, into the walls, into the dark and private artery that only I know exists. They have not lost me. They have simply stopped being able to see me. The atmosphere in the dining room doesn't shift, it curdles. It happens the way milk curdles, a slow, irreversible process that produces something sour and wrong. The eating stops. The drinking continues, but the purpose of the evening has changed, and everyone in the room knows it except, perhaps, for whatever remains of my son's conscience, which appears to have taken the night off. The clan begins to move. Their eyes have been tracking the built-in walnut cabinets for the last hour. I saw it, the way you see a surveyor's instrument slowly orienting toward a target. The dinner was never the main event. The dinner was the aperitif. Randy stands up first, because Randy is always the first to do the thing that gives the rest of them permission, and he sweeps his forearm across the display shelf above the wet bar with the casual brutality of a man who has never in his life handled anything that cost more than his truck payment. The hand-blown crystal vases, 8 of them, Tyrolean, purchased at an estate sale in 1994 by a woman who drove 4 hours to Billings because she'd read about them in an auction catalog and knew they were right for that specific shelf in that specific room, explode into the plastic bin with a sound like a chandelier falling. The crash fills the room and then vanishes, swallowed by the storm outside, and Randy doesn't even look at what he's done. He's already moving to the next thing. I watch it happen. They move with the frantic, desperate energy of people who know the law is miles away, buried under 6 feet of Montana snow, and who have been waiting for exactly this kind of weather for exactly this kind of work. This is not spontaneous. This has been planned, the plastic bins, the cardboard boxes staged near the mudroom door, the nephews who materialize with bubble wrap from somewhere I didn't see them bring it in. This is a raid with logistics. Claire has been managing her supply chain. My husband's legacy, every object we chose together over 38 years of building a life that had weight and texture and specific gravity, is being reduced to a line item. To assets. To the raw material of someone else's fresh start. I stand in the doorway between the foyer and the dining room, and I watch, and my feet have stopped working. Randy moves to the fireplace mantel. The brass drafting tools have lived there since 1987, when my husband's mother shipped them from her garage after his father died. They are 19th century instruments, a full surveyor's set, the calipers and dividers and parallel rules fitted into a mahogany case lined with green baize that has faded to the color of sage. The brass has the particular warm patina that only comes from 100 years of handling, the high points worn to gold by the fingers of men who use precision as a form of love. My husband kept them because his grandfather had used them to survey a parcel of land in eastern Montana that eventually became the foundation of everything our family built. Not metaphorically. Literally. Those instruments had touched that ground. Randy grabs the mahogany case, opens it without ceremony, and begins pulling the instruments out individually, turning them over in his hands with the assessing squint of a man visiting a pawn shop. Old brass is worth something, he grunts to no one in particular. He shoves the calipers into a jagged cardboard box already half full of beer cans and wadded packing tape. The delicate tip of the instrument, the point my husband's grandfather used to mark survey stakes in frozen Montana ground, scrapes against an aluminum rim with a sound that travels up my spine and detonates somewhere behind my eyes. Each scratch is a blade. I feel my feet moving before I give them permission, but not toward Randy. My peripheral vision has caught something worse. The Patek Philippe is in its velvet case near the hearth. It lives there because that is where my husband always set it when he came home, a habit so absolute it had become a kind of architecture, the watch in its case near the fire the same way the kettle was always on the second burner and the Earl Grey was always the third tin from the left. After he died, I couldn't move it. I tried once, 6 months after the funeral, and I put it back within an hour. Some objects become load-bearing. Claire's teenage nephew, 17, maybe, with the particular brand of adolescent contempt that comes from being told you're special by parents who never said no to anything, has spotted it. He's moving with the confidence of someone who has already decided that what he wants, he takes. His hand reaches for the case. I move before I can think. My hand closes around his wrist. Don't touch that. My voice comes out cracked, split down the middle by something I haven't heard in it in years: authority. Not the managed, professional authority of a woman on a job site, but something older and rawer, the voice of a person who has reached the boundary of what she will permit. It surprises me. It surprises him. For half a second, we are absolutely still. Then he sneers. His eyes catch the firelight and give nothing back, and he shoves me with the flat of his palm against my shoulder, not hard, in the way an adult man would be hard, but with the specific contempt of someone who considers the obstacle beneath serious effort. My heels catch on the edge of the hearthrug. I go backward. My hip finds the corner of the oak table, the exact corner, the sharp one I always meant to have rounded and never did, and the pain is sudden and white and specific. I catch myself on the table's edge with both hands, my wrists absorbing the impact, my wrists that are 68 years old and have already absorbed a great deal. The pain reminds me of exactly who I am and what I am up against. I am 68 years old. I am 5 feet 5 inches tall. I am surrounded. I scramble upright. The intercom panel is on the wall 12 feet away, the system that routes to the county sheriff's non-emergency line, to the private security contractor I pay $2,000 a month to respond within 40 minutes in good weather. I can trigger an alarm from there. I can escalate this from a family incident to a documented intrusion with witnesses. But Claire is already there. She has moved with a speed that tells me she anticipated this, that she has watched me catalog exits and override switches the way a careful general watches an opposing commander. She has been studying me. Her slender frame fills the space between me and the panel, her designer athleisure a deliberate absurdity against the stone and oak of the room. Her face, in this moment, has shed every layer of performance. What's underneath is not rage. Rage is warm. This is cold. This is a woman who has been waiting years for this exact configuration of circumstances: blizzard, isolation, witnesses who are loyal to her, a 68-year-old woman with a bruised hip and nowhere to run, and who is experiencing something close to relief that the waiting is finally over. "Where do you think you're going, Ernesta?" She says it quietly. The whole room can hear it anyway because the clan has gone still the way an audience goes still when the scene they've been waiting for finally begins. Her breath carries expensive wine and peppermint, a combination that will, I understand, be permanently associated in my nervous system with this moment. With the smell of being cornered. The clarity in her eyes is terrifying. Not because it's monstrous, but because it is so certain. She has been building to this. She has a picture in her mind of how this ends, and she is confident in the picture, and that confidence is the most dangerous thing in the room. She flicks her wrist. The package lands at my feet with a thin, hollow crinkle, the sound of cheap polyester in a plastic bag, the sound of a joke being told at someone's expense. I look down. Through the clear packaging I see black lace, the translucent synthetic kind that photographs as seductive and wears as itchy. A maid's costume. The kind sold in Halloween shops and fantasy boutiques, the kind designed not for domestic utility but for a specific kind of humiliation, the performance of servitude for someone else's pleasure. The clan laughs. Not all of them. Enough of them. "You've been such a diligent servant tonight," Claire says, and her voice has climbed back to its performance register, loud enough for the room, warm with false generosity. "I think it's time you dressed the part." She tilts her head. "It's only fair, since we're letting you stay." "Since we're letting you stay." I stare at the package on my hardwood floor. The floor I specified. The oak I sourced from a mill in western Montana because I wanted the grain to run in a specific direction to complement the light from the west wall. My floor, with this object on it, in this room full of people who came here to watch me break. Claire leans in. Close enough that I can see the individual hairs of her overworked brow. Close enough that the peppermint is sharp and medicinal and wrong. Put it on, Ernesta. Her voice has dropped to the blade register again, intimate, surgical, meant for me alone. Put it on and serve the men their drinks. A pause, perfectly calibrated. Or Randy and the boys will carry you to that basement right now, exactly as you are. Another pause. And trust me, they won't be gentle with the clutter. The room is absolutely silent. The blizzard fills the silence, outside, always outside, the storm doing the only honest thing in the building, screaming without apology against glass that was designed to hold. She is offering me a choice between two kinds of destruction, the destruction of my dignity or the destruction of my body, delivered at the hands of men who are already standing and already flushed with the specific intoxication of permitted cruelty. She has constructed the choice so that neither option preserves me. That is the architecture of the trap. She doesn't want the costume. She wants to watch me decide which part of myself to surrender. She wants the light to go out. I stare at the black lace on the floor. My mind goes somewhere still and lateral, the way it does when I'm reviewing a design under deadline and I need to find the load path that isn't obvious. I look at the lace. I have seen this lace before. My smartwatch is linked to 16 cameras distributed across the property, 12 interior, for external, all of them feeding to an encrypted archive that Claire disabled the visible indicators on approximately 4 months ago, presumably believing she had disabled the cameras themselves. She had disabled the indicator lights. The cameras continued recording. I have watched her wear this exact garment, the cheap black lace, the translucent polyester, in the guest house on 6 separate Tuesday afternoons between March and July, in the company of the contractor I hired to resurface the mudroom floor. The contractor she recommended, I now recall. The contractor who spent 8 weeks on a job that should have taken 3. She is trying to dress me in the costume of her own infidelity. She wants to use her own filth as a shroud for my dignity, to bury me in the evidence of what she is, and in doing so, launder it. There is a particular kind of cruelty in that, not just cruel, but architecturally cruel, designed to accomplish 2 objectives with a single gesture. I look at the lace on the floor and I feel something in my chest that I can only describe as the opposite of grief. Something angular and specific and cold and useful. They stand. Randy first, then the cousins, then the nephews, the full roster of the clan's male contingent, pushing back chairs that scrape against my floor, rising to their full heights in the way that men who have decided to be frightening rise. They form a loose semicircle. Their shadows stretch long and distorted across the oak-paneled walls under the recessed LEDs, elongated versions of themselves that make them seem larger than they are. Their faces are flushed. Alcohol and the particular intoxication of bullying a woman they've spent months being made to envy. Claire has managed this, I understand, carefully, positioning me as the obstacle between them and everything they feel entitled to. She has turned their resentment into a tool with an edge, and now she is pointing it at me. The oxygen in the room feels thick and insufficient. I look at each of their faces in sequence, the way I used to look at a wall of load calculations, looking for the number that doesn't work, the assumption that will fail under real conditions. I find nothing useful. They are simply present, and there are many of them, and I am one person with a bruised hip and a stained silk blouse. My eyes go to the last option I have in this room. Mark. His name comes out as something I haven't heard my own voice do in 40 years, a gasp with the shape of a word. My eyes find him across the length of the table, across the ruins of the dinner, past the cardboard boxes and the plastic bins and the scattered contents of 38 years. He is leaning back in his chair. His thumbs are hooked in his leather belt, an expensive belt, Mont Blanc. I bought it for his birthday 3 years ago. He is watching me with an expression I have to classify because I cannot accept what I first think it is. I look again. I allow for every possible interpretation. I eliminate them one by one. What remains is dull, expectant curiosity. Not pity. Not anger. Not shame. He is watching me the way you watch a nature documentary when you already know the outcome but you want to see the exact moment of capture. He is waiting for the show to begin. He wants to see the woman who gave him everything, the house, the education, the 30 years of absolute prioritization, finally, definitively, reduced to nothing. There is nothing left to give him. The last thread, thinner than I'd realized, more load-bearing than I'd understood, shrivels and goes slack. The heat in my chest simply stops. It doesn't cool gradually, it ceases, the way a system loses power, one moment present, next moment not. And in the space where the grief was, something else assembles itself, using the same materials but according to a different design. Not warmth. Not rage. Cold. Architectural cold, the temperature of a calculation being performed correctly. I stop being a victim. I stop being a mother. I become what I was before any of that, a woman who understands systems. A woman who spent 30 years building redundancies and contingencies and hidden pathways into every structure she designed, because she knew, from the first time a contractor told her the specs were excessive, that the moment would always come when the structure would be tested beyond its nominal design load. I had been tested beyond my nominal design load. The contingencies are ready. I assess, 6 steps to the foyer. The floor between here and there, I know which boards speak and which ones hold. Claire's position is at my 10 o'clock, her arm now extending toward me, fingers reaching for my collar. Randy is at my 2 o'clock, 3 feet farther. The oak panel is in the foyer, 4 feet past the archway, offset from the fireplace wall by the width of one doorframe. My pulse has slowed to something mechanical and reliable. They think they've cornered a wounded animal. They have, in fact, just stepped into the teeth of a machine they spent years ignoring because they assumed it was decorative. Claire's fingers close on air. She reaches for my collar, do it now, and I am already moving. Not running, not retreating. Executing. A sharp pivot on the balls of my feet, my weight shifting with the precision of 30 years of navigating construction sites in the dark, my body moving through the foyer archway before her hand can establish contact. Behind me I hear the scramble of boots on hardwood, Randy, the cousins, heavy men moving fast and careless, their footsteps announcing every intention they have. I know exactly which boards they're hitting. I can map their position from the sound alone. 4 steps to the panel. 3. My right hand is already rising. I feel the wall before I touch it, the particular pull of 30 years of muscle memory and a haptic trigger memorized the way you memorize a combination, not consciously, but in the hands. My thumb finds the microscopic indentation in the floor molding. 5 pounds of pressure. Exactly. The hydraulic latch releases. The oak panel swings inward on its concealed pivot with a whisper, pressurized air from the corridor equalizing into the room, a breath from inside the house's own body. The sound is so quiet that for a half-second no one in the room understands what they're seeing. I step backward into the dark. The spine receives me like a hand closing. The darkness is absolute and immediately familiar, the smell of fiber optic housing and concrete and the faint, mechanical warmth of conduit runs that have been warm for 28 years. I know this place the way I know my own pulse. I take 1 step back, 2, my shoulders finding the conduit housings along the left wall, and I turn to face the panel. Through the closing seam, I see Claire's face. The expression on it is something I will remember for the rest of my life, not because it is monstrous, but because it is the face of a person confronting a variable they did not account for, a load their model cannot explain. Her mouth is open. Her predatory certainty has cracked cleanly down the middle, and underneath it is something raw and young and afraid, and I note it the way I note a structural failure, with total attention and without sympathy. Her fingers reach the seam. The tips graze the panel's edge. The scramble of boots is close now, the cousins crowding behind her, Randy's voice already rising. The oak panel clicks shut. The magnetic latch engages with a sound like a decision being made. The darkness is complete. The voices are muffled immediately, reduced to the low, distorted frequencies that travel through 12 inches of insulated wall, urgent sounds from another world, from a world I have left, from a world that is no longer mine to manage. I hear them out there, confused, their hands running over the seamless paneling looking for the seam, finding nothing. Finding exactly what I designed, nothing. I lean my back against the cold concrete of the corridor wall. I close my eyes in the darkness, which costs me nothing, and I breathe. I am inside the walls. I am in the spine of my own house. For the first time in longer than I can account for, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. The darkness inside the spine is not hostile. That's the first thing I register as the magnetic latch seals behind me and the muffled voices of the clan are reduced to the low, distorted frequencies of another world. The darkness is not hostile. It is mine. I designed these dimensions, 24 inches of clear width, 6 feet 4 inches of vertical clearance at the corridor's highest point, metal grating underfoot spaced at 3/4 inch intervals to allow for drainage and airflow. I know these specifications the way I know my own height. The darkness is simply a room with the lights off, and I have always known where the furniture is. The smell is cold concrete and ionized dust and something faintly metallic, the particular smell of conduit runs that have been warm for 28 years, the smell of a system that has been quietly, faithfully operational since the day I activated it. I breathe it in and my nervous system responds the way it responds to Earl Grey and the sound of a Montana blizzard, with a recognition that is almost physical, almost cellular. My right hand finds the primary fiber optic trunk along the left wall, the braided copper housing, cool and smooth, the main artery of the house's nervous system running from the foundation to the command suite in one uninterrupted run. I trace it with my fingertips the way you trace a lifeline. I begin to move. The orthopedic soles of my shoes are silent on the grating. I move with a wiry, deliberate agility that would have surprised them, had they been able to see it, the particular economy of motion that comes not from youth but from 3 decades of navigating active construction sites in the dark, knowing that the cost of a misstep is not embarrassment but injury, and that injury on a job site is a problem you cannot afford. I know where the low conduit crossing is at the 6-foot mark. I duck under it without breaking stride. The vertical ladder is where I built it, cold steel rungs biting into my palms as I begin to climb. The bruise on my hip speaks when I reach for the 3rd rung, a white, specific protest, and I note it and continue climbing. I am no longer a 68-year-old widow being herded toward a basement. I am a ghost traversing the nervous system of a beast I created, ascending through its spine toward its brain, and the beast is awake and waiting. The thuds start before I reach the mezzanine. They travel through the structural steel as vibration rather than sound. I feel them in my hands on the rungs, in my forearms, a series of heavy, irregular impacts that I identify immediately as boots striking the oak paneling. Searching for the seam. Not finding it. The magnetic deadbolts are rated for 500 pounds of sustained force and I specified titanium threaded lag bolts through the frame into the structural studs, because I knew, when I built this, that a moment might come when someone who was angry and large would stand on the other side of this door and try very hard to open it. Through the narrow ventilation slats near the ceiling, voice resolves out of the vibration. Randy, where the hell did she go? The confusion in it is almost gratifying. Almost. I file the gratification away for later and keep climbing. Below the baffled rage there is something else in his voice, a frequency I recognize from job sites, from the moment a crew realizes the thing they were certain of has turned out to be uncertain. A sharp, primitive edge of fear. They have spent the last several hours operating on a very specific model of this situation. One woman, 68 years old, isolated, outweighed, and surrounded. The model has just produced an output it cannot explain. They thought they were trapped in here with a victim. They haven't realized the house just became a predator. I pull myself onto the mezzanine floor. The monitors come on automatically, triggered by the biometric sensor that reads my grip on the ladder's top rung, a detail so specific I am briefly grateful to my own past self for thinking of it. 12 screens. 4K resolution. Cold, electric blue that fills the command suite like a second atmosphere. This room does not appear on any floor plan. It occupies the dead space above the master bedroom's coffered ceiling, accessed only through the spine, ventilated through a duct that reads on the HVAC schematic as a plenum return. The county inspector passed it without noting it. The county inspector, I recall, was not especially thorough, and I had made certain there was nothing obvious to find. I sit in the ergonomic chair, the leather is cool against my back, the lumbar support settling into the familiar architecture of my spine, and I look at what the house is showing me. Dining room, the clan has paused their raid, confused, clustered near the foyer, Randy gesturing at the paneled wall with the large motor expressiveness of a man who has had too much to drink and cannot understand a thing that is happening. West wing corridor, empty. Guest suite, empty. Master bedroom, Claire, standing in the doorway, her expression reorganizing itself from shock back into something operational. I look at my own reflection in the dark margin between two monitors. Steel gray hair. High cheekbones catching the blue light. Eyes that are dry, that have been dry for the last 30 minutes, that have apparently decided they are done with that particular form of expression. I am the architect in her cockpit. The house hums around me. My first instinct is the law. It is the correct instinct, and I honor it by acting on it immediately. I reach for the satellite phone mounted in its cradle on the console's right side, the dedicated uplink, hardened and independent from the main communications array, the backup I installed because I have always understood that the moment you need a backup is the moment the primary system has already failed. I press the sheriff's department speed dial. I hold the handset to my ear. The flat, rhythmic pulse of a dead line. I try again. I try the direct line for the county dispatch. I try the private security contractor. 3 calls, 3 dead lines, the same toneless pulse that means the satellite array on the roof has accumulated enough ice to collapse the signal. I designed the array's mounting system for structural integrity in storm conditions. I did not design the satellite itself. I set the handset down. The blizzard has not just buried the roads. It has murdered the signal. It has sealed every conventional exit from this situation and left me with only the exits I built for myself. The realization arrives in my chest with a quality I can only describe as permission, not the terrifying helplessness I should perhaps be feeling, but a grim, crystalline clarity, the clarity of a system that has just had all its redundant options eliminated and now operates on its primary design parameters alone. There is no rescue coming over the ridge. There is only the house, and what I built into it. The sound arrives through the vents before the image resolves on the monitor. A crack, the sound of wood splitting under a force applied suddenly and without care, that the house's acoustics catch and amplify and deliver to me with a fidelity that is almost cruel. Mahogany. I know the sound of mahogany splitting. It has a higher, more musical register than pine, less dense than oak, and the specific guest suite door that Mark has just kicked in is a piece I hand-sanded myself to a 220 grit finish over 2 evenings in October of 2009, because the contractor's finish was wrong and I was not willing to live with wrong. Monitor 3 shows me the west wing. Mark is there. He is in the hallway outside the guest suite, and the door is open in the way that a door opened by a kick is open, at a wrong angle, the hinge side partially separated from the frame. He is flushed. His expensive cashmere sweater is rumpled, one sleeve pushed up. He doesn't look like my son. He doesn't look like the boy I raised on blueprints and integrity. He looks like a man who has given himself permission to be something I didn't create. Find her, Claire. His voice comes through the intercom distorted and too loud, the compression artifacts of anger transmitted through a system designed for calm speech. She's hiding in a closet like a coward. Find her and drag her out. He isn't looking for his mother. He is looking for a problem to be resolved. A nuisance. An obstacle between himself and the clean inheritance he has apparently decided he deserves. I watch him on the monitor. I watch him the way I have watched every structural failure I've ever documented, with total attention, with the specific, cold heartbreak of an engineer watching something that should have held, that was designed to hold, that held for 38 years, finally choosing not to. Monitor 4. I don't want to look at monitor 4. I look at monitor 4. Claire enters the master bedroom with the purposeful stride of someone who knows exactly what she came for, not me, not a hiding place, but a specific objective she has perhaps been anticipating for months. She doesn't search the closet. She doesn't check behind the door. She walks directly to the nightstand, her designer athleisure silent on the rug I imported from a mill in Vermont, and her eyes are fixed on the silver urn. My husband. 41 years of marriage. The man who held a flashlight for 4 hours in a half-built house in December so I could frame a hidden corridor. The man who read my structural calculations and never once suggested they were excessive. The man whose watch I couldn't move from the hearth for a year because moving it meant accepting a geometry of the room that no longer contained him. Claire's wrist flicks. The urn hits the rug with a dull, heavy thud. Not the clean, final sound of something breaking, worse, the soft, yielding sound of something contained being released. The gray disperses across the Vermont wool in a slow, billowing cloud. A man's life. A man's substance. 41 years of everything, distributed across a fiber I chose for its durability. She laughs. The sound is sharp and jagged and completely empty, the laugh of someone performing pleasure for an audience of one. She brings her designer heel down into the gray. My hands begin to shake. Come out, Ernesta. Her voice through the master bedroom intercom fills the command suite with the particular acoustic signature of a person who has mistaken cruelty for power. She doesn't know I'm watching. She's performing for the room, for the clan, for Mark, for the audience she has assembled to witness what she believes is the final stage of her campaign. You can't stay in the walls forever. A pause, dramatic, the pause of a woman who has rehearsed this. We're going to find you. And when we do, we're not just taking the house. Her voice drops into the register she thinks is menacing. We're taking your sanity. The insults that follow are not worth cataloging in full. Shriveled up relic. Cowardly old bitch. Pathetic, obsolete woman. Each one arrives in my chest and lands against the wall I have been building there since Mark shrugged my hand off his shoulder, and the wall holds, and the wall gets thicker. They think they are dismantling me with words. They are, in fact, providing me with materials. Every insult is a brick. Every brick is load-bearing. But the gray on the carpet. I stare at monitor 4 even after Claire has moved on to the hallway to continue her performance for the clan. The camera is still on the master bedroom. The rug is still there. The gray smudge is still there, dispersed and irretrievable, and the urn is on its side against the baseboard, and the room that was designed as a place of rest and order and the particular quiet of a life well constructed is instead showing me the evidence of a specific, deliberate act of desecration. My hands are trembling. It is not the careful trembling of cold or exhaustion. It is a violent, uncontrollable tremor that originates somewhere below my sternum and travels outward through my forearms to my fingertips, making it impossible to type, making it impossible to do anything that requires the fine motor control that has been my primary professional tool for 3 decades. The physical assault. The explicit death threat, Randy and the boys will carry you to that basement, and they won't be gentle. The desecration of human remains, which is not a metaphor or an exaggeration but a specific act with a specific legal classification. Not a chair. My chair, the one at the head of the dining table where I have sat for 28 years, where I have eaten 3,000 dinners, where my husband sat across from me and we designed rooms together on paper napkins because the ideas came at dinner and we never wanted to stop them. Claire is in that chair, legs crossed, her phone held at the angle of a person reviewing a real estate app. I can see the glow of her screen reflected in the monitor's camera, and I can read enough of the interface to understand what she's doing, listing price research, the particular navigational pattern of someone pricing a property. She is already selling my house. She is selling my house before she owns it, in the dining room of a building whose systems have just shifted to a state she has no knowledge of and no framework to interpret, and she is doing it with the bored confidence of a woman who considers the game over. They hold the floor. They believe they have won. They are sitting inside the chamber of a loaded gun. I check the master console clock. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. The protocol, sanctuary window opens at midnight, a timing parameter I wrote into the system because I wanted a buffer, a deliberate pause between the decision and the execution, a final opportunity for a rational mind to abort. 22 years ago I thought of the pause as a safeguard against my own worst impulses. Tonight I understand it differently. It is the last 2 minutes of the world as they know it. I place my index finger over the execute icon on the touchscreen. The glass is cool under my fingertip. The icon pulses with a slow crimson rhythm that matches, almost exactly, the rhythm of my own heartbeat. I look at the screens one last time. Mark, on the dining room feed, laughing at something Randy has said. His head thrown back, his hand on the table, the Mont Blanc belt catching the recessed light. He looks relaxed. He looks like a man at the beginning of something, not the end. Claire on her phone, her fingers scrolling through property listings with the same casual efficiency she brings to everything she wants and has decided to take. The gray on the master bedroom carpet, still visible on monitor 4. The empty shelves where my husband's legacy was. I think of the man who held the flashlight. I think of his birthday, 9/12/57, the numbers I just typed into a system that is currently read and ready and waiting for me. I think of what he would say if he were here, and I know, with the certainty of a person who was married to someone for 41 years, exactly what he would say. He would not say stop. He would not say be the bigger person. He would look at the screens, and look at me, and say what he always said when I had run the calculations and confirmed the load path and was hesitating anyway. You built it right, Ernie. Trust the structure. My pulse is a steady, architectural thrum. The clock ticks to 11:59. I watch the second hand. I watch it with the patience of a woman who has spent a lifetime understanding that the difference between a controlled demolition and a catastrophe is timing, and that timing is not about speed. Timing is about knowing exactly when the moment arrives, and being ready, and not moving a single second early. The second hand reaches the 12. The clock reads midnight. My finger rests on the glass. Midnight. My finger descends. The icon pulses once beneath my fingertip, a single crimson beat, like a heart acknowledging a decision, and then the house speaks. The sound is tectonic. Not the sharp, percussive crack I might have anticipated, but something deeper and more final, a series of heavy, metallic reports that travel through the building's steel skeleton from foundation to roofline, each one distinct and deliberate. Thump. 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 The magnetic deadbolts firing into their hardened steel frames, one after another in sequence, the exact sequence I programmed on a winter evening 22 years ago in this room with my husband beside me. Each impact carries the specific resonance of a very large, very permanent thing becoming fixed. It sounds like a firing squad delivering its verdict one chamber at a time. On the monitors, the effect is immediate. The clan jolts. 6 bodies in the dining room lurching upright as the house shudders beneath them, wine glasses tipping, red spreading across the tablecloth I brought back from a trip my husband and I took to Portland in 2004, the one with the embroidered hem I always meant to have repaired. Someone screams, a short, high burst of pure shock. Randy is on his feet, his head swiveling toward the foyer, toward the windows, toward the exits that are no longer exits. The exits are now integrated components of a multi-ton vault. The trap has closed. I sit in the blue glow of the monitors and feel something I have not felt in longer than I can accurately measure, the structural integrity of my life, returning. Not all at once, not like a restoration, like a recalibration. The slow, reliable settlement of load-bearing elements finding their designed positions. I breathe, and the breath goes all the way down. I drag my finger across the shutter control. The slider moves smoothly under my touch, and outside, on every exterior camera simultaneously, I watch the reinforced steel plates I disguised as decorative eaves begin their descent. I specified the track system from an industrial supplier in Spokane and told the contractor they were automated storm shutters, which is not untrue. I did not tell him about the locking mechanism. I did not tell him they can be sealed from inside against manual override. They slide down on their heavy-duty tracks with the implacable patience of something that has been waiting for permission. One by one they find the stone sills, and the impact of each one carries through the house in a separate, definitive vibration, not violent, just certain, the way a door closing on an empty room is certain. The warm amber glow that has been spilling from the Walker Estate's windows into the Montana dark, the glow I have watched from the porch on winter evenings, the glow my husband called the house breathing, goes out. Panel by panel, view by view, the outside world is replaced by brushed steel. The screaming starts in the dining room. High-pitched, frantic, the specific register of people who have just understood that the geometry of their situation has changed in a way they cannot reverse. I watch them on the feed, their faces tilting upward at the shutters descending across the west wall's expanse of glass, the mountains disappearing behind steel, the last visible evidence of the world outside, the blizzard, the darkness, the ridge, erased. They are no longer in a home with exits. They are in a box with furniture. Randy runs to the front door. He grabs the handle, throws his full weight against it. The door does not move. The door is, at this moment, indistinguishable from the wall. I watch him run to the next door. Then the next. I watch understanding move through him slowly and badly, the way bad news travels through a person who doesn't want to receive it. Lights out, I say. My own voice in the command suite, quiet and level, addressed to no one. A small, private formality, the announcement before the action, the way you say clear on a demo site before you push the plunger. I kill the main grid. The chandeliers in the dining room, custom bronze, 12 feet of hand-forged chain, designed to throw warm light across the Douglas fir ceiling, go dark between one fraction of a second and the next. The under-cabinet LEDs in the kitchen. The recessed lighting throughout. The electric fireplace in the great room, whose simulated flames have been casting their gentle fraud across the walls all evening. All of it gone, simultaneously, as if the house has simply decided to stop pretending. What remains is nothing. Not dim, not shadowed, nothing. The absolute dark of a sealed space at midnight, no exterior light source, no emergency lighting because I have suppressed the emergency circuit, no phone screens because the cellular signal died with the blizzard. The darkness is so complete it has weight. I know this because I designed the room to these specifications, 0 lux under full shutter deployment. I can hear them. Stumbling. The specific acoustic signature of bodies encountering furniture, the hollow thud of a shin against a table edge, the clatter of a chair tipping, someone's palms slapping a wall in search of a surface to hold. Their voices have lost their performative quality entirely. The cruelty is gone. The entitlement is gone. What's left is something ancient and involuntary, the sounds of frightened animals in the dark, high-pitched and cracking at the edges. I sit in the blue glow of my monitors. I am the only person in this building who can see. I pour a cup of Earl Grey from the warming plate. I brought the kettle up during the first hour and the spine, along with a cashmere throw and 3 technical manuals from the shelf near the ladder, and I watch them stumble through the rooms of my house. I let the silence stretch. I have learned, over 30 years of managing construction crews and contractors and clients who needed to understand something they didn't want to understand, that silence is a structural element. It has load-bearing capacity. You apply it correctly, you give it time to settle, and it accomplishes things that speech cannot. I let them have 4 minutes of total, lightless, sealed silence. I watch the thermal sensors register the first degree of temperature drop on the main floor. I watch Randy try the shutters with a dining chair, 3 strikes, the chair losing integrity faster than the steel. I watch a nephew sit down on the kitchen floor with his knees pulled to his chest. Then I hit the media override. Every 4K screen in the house ignites at maximum luminance. The effect on the night vision cameras is immediate. The darkness becomes a strobe of blinding white light, erupting from every room simultaneously, the 70-inch panel and the lounge, the bedroom monitors, the kitchen hub above the island, the guest room screens, all of them at full brightness in a space that has been lightless for 4 minutes, the sudden contrast so extreme it is physiologically painful. I watch them flinch and cover their eyes, their hands flying up against the light the way hands fly up against a blow. But it is not a movie playing on those screens. It is the guest house archive. High definition, time-stamped, unedited. The camera I installed above the guest house door, the one Claire believes she disabled by cutting the indicator light. She did not disable the camera. She disabled a light. The footage begins mid-sequence. Claire, in black lace, the specific cheap polyester she tossed at my feet hours ago, and the contractor she recommended, in the room she told Mark she was using as a design consultation space. Every screen in the house is showing it. The clan's faces, illuminated by the footage of Claire's infidelity, are something I will not soon forget. I cranked the audio to 80 decibels. The speaker array I specified for this house was designed for orchestral clarity, 12 high-fidelity cabinets distributed through the structure to eliminate acoustic dead zones, the kind of system that can reproduce the dynamic range of a full symphony at concert volume without compression artifacts or distortion. I have used it for 30 years to fill the house with Beethoven and Miles Davis and the particular silence of music playing at low volume in an empty room. Tonight it is doing something else. The sound fills the house completely. There is no room where it is not present. There is no corner, no closet, no wall thick enough to muffle it meaningfully. The clan cannot escape it. The clan is in it, surrounded by it on all sides. Every speaker delivering the audio of Claire's Tuesday afternoons in high definition at concert volume. On the night vision feed, I find Mark. He is in the great room, standing in front of the lounge's 70-inch screen. The footage is playing across his face in flickering light and shadow, and his expression is doing something I have never seen Mark's face do. It is coming apart. Not dramatically, not with the theatrical collapse of someone performing grief, just quietly. The specific structural failure of a face that has run out of composure and has nothing underneath to replace it with. His shoulders drop. His hands, at his sides, open and close once, twice, and then go still. He stares at the screen and does not look away. The queen of the household is exposed as its primary rot. The lace she threw at my feet is now the shroud for her marriage and for everything she built here. And it is doing this work in front of her entire family at 80 decibels, and there is nothing in the building she can turn off, and there is nowhere in the building she can go. I lean into the microphone. The professional-grade condenser is warm under my lips, the pop filter catching the first consonant of the first word before it can distort, and my voice, when it comes, is what it has always been at its most calibrated, level, clinical, and carrying the specific authority of a person who is speaking from the structure of the building itself. You wanted a show, Claire? I say it quietly, and the house amplifies it to a volume that rattles the vent covers, my voice layered over the audio of her archive footage so that the two sounds occupy the same air simultaneously, hers recorded, mine live, hers of a Tuesday afternoon she thought was private, mine of a midnight she did not predict. You wanted me to serve the men? On the cameras I watched them freeze. Randy, mid-stride toward a shutter, stops. The nephews look at the ceiling, at the vents, at the walls, trying to locate the source of a voice that appears to be coming from everywhere and nowhere, from the structure itself, from the steel and oak and concrete that surrounds them on all sides. Behold your queen. I let it land. I let the silence after it function as a load-bearing element. Look at the legacy you brought into this house. Randy scrambles toward a corner and presses his back against the wall, his eyes wide, his drunken confidence evaporated down to something small and exposed. I am the voice of the architecture. I am the unseen god of this steel-ribbed mountain, and they are guests in a body that belongs to me, and the body has decided to speak. Welcome, I say, and I allow myself one dry, short huff of air that is the closest thing I have to a smile, to the basement of your own making. I redirect the HVAC logic. The gas supply to the main floor furnaces closes. The valve is electromagnetic, controlled from the console, and it closes without drama, a number changing on a readout, a soft click somewhere in the mechanical room 2 floors below me. The effect will not be immediate. It will be gradual and certain, which is the preferable kind. I open the external intake vents, not fully, not dangerously, precisely, a 12% aperture on the north-facing intakes, enough to allow the outside air to bleed into the ductwork at a controlled rate. The outside air is currently -20 degrees Fahrenheit. I watch the thermal sensors on the main floor readout begin their descent. 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of a comfortable room. 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of a room that has been unheated for some time. They will feel this first as a chill they attribute to the situation, to fear, to the absence of the electric fireplace's warmth. 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of a room in which breath begins to mist. This will take time. I have time. I have 2 floors of insulated separation between me and the main floor, and the server racks in the command suite produce a reliable thermal output that I have supplemented with the cashmere throw and the Earl Grey. I am sitting at 72 degrees. I will remain at 72 degrees. The house is exhaling the warmth of the parasites, cooling toward a state of equilibrium, toward the temperature of a structure that contains only honest materials. I take a sip of tea and watch the numbers descend. The night vision feeds show me everything. It takes less time than I expected. Without the heat and the wine and the lights and the particular intoxication of collective cruelty, the clan is revealed for what it was underneath the performance, a collection of cold, frightened individuals with no actual loyalty to one another, who were assembled and aimed like a weapon by a woman who is now the least popular person in the building. Randy turns on Claire at approximately 2 a.m. I watch it on the dining room feed, his face inches from hers, his voice carrying through the vents in the distorted fragments that arrive in the command suite as muffled but interpretable. You told us this was settled. You said she was nothing. You said this would be easy. Claire's response is inaudible, but her posture is not. She has retreated against the wall, her arms crossed, the performance gone, the cruelty gone, replaced by something I recognize as genuine fear of the man she thought she controlled. Mark is not present for this exchange. Mark is still in the great room. The screens have been looping for 2 hours. He has not moved from the position in front of the 70-inch panel. He is sitting on the floor now, his back against the sofa, his knees drawn up, the Mont Blanc belt that I bought him catching the light from the footage of his wife's Tuesday afternoons. He is staring at the middle distance, not at the screen anymore, at nothing, the particular vacancy of a person whose world has been reorganized around a fact that cannot be unlearned. The cousins and nephews fight over the decorative throws, 3 of them, wool, hung on the rack near the fireplace. 6 people, 3 blankets, no heat. The mathematics are unfavorable and they know it. They shove each other. The clan isn't a family. It was a swarm, held together by the momentum of a shared objective and the warmth of my house and the wine from my cellar, and now that those things have been removed, it is dissolving into its component parts, which are not pretty and which have no particular reason to cooperate with one another. I watch them eat each other in the dark with the detached, clinical attention of an engineer documenting a stress test. I live in the spine for 2 days. I sleep in disciplined bursts of 90 minutes, the schedule I developed on deadline projects, the minimum viable rest that maintains cognitive function without surrendering significant time. The ergonomic chair reclines. The cashmere throw is adequate. The Earl Grey lasts through the first day. I switch to water from the spine's emergency supply for the second. I read. My technical manuals are on the shelf near the ladder, 3 volumes on structural engineering, 1 on residential code compliance, one on cybersecurity architecture that I acquired last year because the field had developed faster than my existing knowledge. I read in the blue glow of the monitors with the focused pleasure of a person who is in the place they are most themselves, doing the thing that has always made most sense to them, while outside the command suite the situation resolves according to its own logic. They try the shutters twice more. I watch them on the cameras, taking turns with the dining chairs, which are hand-turned walnut and which cost $400 each and which are structurally inadequate for the purpose they're being applied to. The steel does not dent. The latches do not flex. On the second attempt they try stacking a nephew on Randy's shoulders to reach the upper shutter track, and the physics of this do not work in their favor. They try to find the panel. I watch them run their hands along the foyer walls for 40 minutes, first Claire, then two of the nephews, then Randy, their palms flat against the oak, pressing, searching for the seam that isn't visible, for the trigger that is no longer active. I disabled the haptic mechanism from the console 6 hours after entering the spine. The panel is now simply a wall. They press their hands against my work and find nothing, and the nothing is impeccable, and I feel, watching this, a quiet professional satisfaction. They melt snow from the intake vents for water. They huddle. They argue and then, on the second night, fall into the specific silence of people who have exhausted their arguments and arrived at the cold, undecorated truth of their situation. I watched the storm break over the peaks from the roof camera. The blizzard peaks at 4 a.m. on the second night, the wind instruments registering 94 miles per hour at the ridge, exactly within the design load I calculated in 1993, and then begins its recession. By dawn the wind has dropped to 40. By mid-morning the sky is clarifying. The silence of the house, in those final hours, is a beautiful, mathematical thing. It is the silence of a structure that has done what it was designed to do. It is the silence of a proof completed correctly. The third morning arrives as blinding white. The sun on new snow at altitude has a specific quality, not warmth yet, just light, vast and indiscriminate, filling the camera feeds with a luminance that requires the auto-exposure to compensate. I watched the ridge emerge from the dissipating cloud. I watched the driveway markers, still buried to their midpoints, catch the light. I watched the security team's SUVs at the gate. 3 vehicles. 6 personnel. The contractor I have used for 11 years, a man named Sullivan who has responded to my calls at every hour without question because I pay him well and specify clearly and never waste his time. He is idling at the gate in the good weather with the quiet patience of a professional who has been told to wait for authorization and is content to do so. I check every camera one final time. I make my documentation, timestamp logs, temperature records, audio archives, video archives. The record of every action taken, every threat made, every piece of my husband's legacy handled and every room accessed. The record of the assault. The record of the desecration. 48 hours of footage, timestamped and encrypted, already backed up to the off-site server I maintain through a provider in Bozeman. I enter the release code. Sanctuary release. The magnetic bolts retract in sequence, the same sequence in reverse. The same tectonic progression of heavy, deliberate sounds traveling through the structure, but this time the sound is not a closing. It is an opening. Each retraction is a permission. The house is relinquishing custody of the people it has been holding. The front vault door swings open. The light that enters is agonizing and clean, the specific white of a Montana morning after a 100-year storm, pouring into a space that has been sealed for 2 days and filling it from floor to ceiling with a cold, clarifying luminance. I watch it on the foyer camera. I watch them flinch from it, these people who were afraid of the dark and are now equally undone by the light. They stumble toward the opening. Not walking, stumbling, the coordination of cold and exhaustion and 2 days without adequate sleep, their movements the movements of people reduced to their most basic ambulatory function. They move like people who have had something removed from them that they did not know they needed until it was gone. Sullivan and his team are at the door. Efficient, professional, unhurried. The documentation I sent to Sullivan's phone an hour ago contains everything the responding officers will eventually need. I step out onto the foyer balcony. The balcony looks down into the entry hall, a design choice I made for exactly this reason, not consciously, not 30 years ago with this scenario in mind, but with the architect's instinct for sight lines and hierarchies of space. From here, the entry hall is a stage, and I am above it, and everyone below is visible in their entirety. I am upright. My hair is the salt and pepper bob, slightly disheveled from 2 days in the spine but recognizably itself, the blunt cut falling correctly along my jaw. I changed into the bespoke wool sweater I keep in the command suite, dark charcoal, good wool, the kind of garment that communicates without trying to. My posture is what it has always been. My hands are folded over the balcony rail, the oak cool and perfectly planed under my palms. I look down. Claire looks up. She is unrecognizable and completely recognizable. The bleached hair is matted, the Instagram-ready makeup a ruin of soot and dried tears and 2 days of fear and cold, the expensive athleisure wrinkled and spotted. All the performance has been stripped away by 60 hours of what I can only describe as honest conditions, and what remains without the performance is a woman who looks much younger than I expected, and much more frightened, and much more ordinary. She opens her mouth. The sound that comes out is not the sharp, cutting voice that said "Put it on, Ernesta." Her throat is raw from the cold. I watched the temperature on the main floor drop to 38 degrees on the second night, and what she produces is a hoarse, damaged approximation of a scream, the sound of a voice that has been used past its capacity and cannot deliver what she is asking of it. I look at her. I do not speak. I do not need to. The balcony is the statement. The posture is the statement. The fact of my being here, upright and intact and looking down at her ruin, is the only statement that the situation requires. She looks away first. Mark comes next through the door, guided by Sullivan's hand on his shoulder, and he does not look up at all. His head is bowed, the cashmere sweater stained and creased, the Mont Blanc belt catching the morning light one last time. He walks with the specific quality of a man who has decided that the most bearable version of this moment is the one where he does not have to see his mother's face. He does not get to make that choice. He makes it anyway. Sullivan's team moves them through the door and into the snow with the brisk, professional efficiency of people who have been paid to solve a problem and have solved it. The nephews. The cousins. Randy, last, his large frame somehow diminished by the cold and the morning light, his bravado as absent as the beer and the borrowed warmth that produced it. They go out into the white without their boxes, without their bins, without my husband's brass instruments or his watch or anything that was not on their bodies when they arrived. They stumble into the snow, stripped of their dignity, their keys, and whatever futures they came here believing were waiting for them. The SUVs move down the driveway. I watch them from the balcony until they reach the bend and disappear behind the tree line, and then I listen until I can no longer hear the engines. The heavy front door closes. Sullivan pulls it from outside with the practiced care of a man who understands that some moments require a degree of ceremony, and the latch engages with a sound that is clean and final and exactly right. Through the foyer camera I watch the security vehicles make the turn at the tree line and descend toward the valley floor. I watch until the feeds show only the driveway and the snow and the particular quality of Montana morning that exists after a storm has passed and the landscape has been revised by it. Then I walk down the stairs. My footsteps are quiet on the oak. I know which boards speak and which ones don't. I have always known, I will always know, and I descend through the foyer, through the entry hall, and I stop at the bottom step. The house is around me. Scarred, honest, present. There is broken glass in the dining room. I can see it from here, catching the light that is beginning to come through where the shutters have retracted. There is spilled wine on my tablecloth, the Portland one with the embroidered hem. There are empty cardboard boxes and scattered evidence of the raid. There are the stripped shelves, the tipped furniture, the marks on the floor where Randy's chairs were dragged. There is, on the master bedroom rug upstairs, a gray smudge. I know about the gray smudge. I will attend to it carefully, with the attention it deserves, when I am ready. I will find someone who knows how to do this kind of restoration. I have learned, over 30 years of building things, that the right expert applied to a specific problem can accomplish more than grief applied to it alone. I will find someone who handles these situations with the proper care. My husband understood about the proper application of expertise to problems that matter. The floors will be scrubbed. The doors will be rehung. The cabinets will be restocked, or they won't, and the emptiness will be a different kind of record. The wine is gone but the cellar is not gone. The glass is broken but the shelves remain. Everything that was taken was a thing, and things can be replaced or mourned, and either way they do not diminish the structure. The structure holds. I sit on the bottom step. My right hand rests on the oak paneling, the seamless paneling, the quarter-sawn white oak, the book-matched grain I specified at a tolerance of 1/32 of an inch, the wall that contains within it the corridor that saved my life. I feel the wood under my palm, cool and dense and absolutely itself, unchanged by what has passed. This house has a memory. My husband said that once, standing in the foyer with a cup of coffee, watching the morning come through the west wall. He didn't mean anything architectural by it. He meant that the house held the shape of the life we'd built in it, the way any good structure holds the shape of the forces that made it. He meant that you could stand in a room and feel the history of the room without being told it. He meant that the materials were honest, and honest materials remember everything. The air is cold. The blizzard has left its residue in the temperature of the walls, the chill that will take the furnaces a day and a night to fully correct. I can see my breath in the foyer, a small visible column that disperses and is gone. But the infection has been purged. The house is cold and scarred and ringing with the particular silence that follows the departure of people who were never meant to be here, the silence of a space returning to itself, reclaiming its own acoustics, settling back into the geometry of a life that was deliberately and carefully built. I sit on the step with my hand on the oak. Outside, the Montana morning is proceeding without concern for what has happened inside these walls. The sun is moving. The snow is beginning, at the exposed southern faces, the first preliminary stages of melt. The peaks are clear and white and indifferent, the same peaks I calculated wind loads for 30 years ago, the same peaks that were there before this house and will be there after everything I've built has returned to its component materials. I breathe. In the clean, cold air of my own foyer, in the silence of a house that has done exactly what it was designed to do, I breathe. Today, for the first time in longer than I can name, the house is clean. And I am still here. If you made it to this moment, thank you for listening all the way through. Most people bail before the bill comes due. But here, the bill always comes due. What started as humiliation and disrespect ended with receipts, truth, and a payoff they never saw coming. If you want more stories where karma shows up without mercy, hit subscribe and come back for the next one. Now tell me in the comments, what was the most disgusting thing they did? What crossed the line for you?